The fourth matter regarding, and then will bring you again to life. Consider this. As indicated by the verse, twice hast thou caused us to die, just as twice thou hast brought us to life. And as is indicated by the above phrase being followed by, and again to him will you return, bearing in mind the Qur'an's conciseness, it may be said that this points to both the life of the grave and the resurrected life at the resurrection of the dead. If you were to ask, if a person is incinerated and his ashes are thrown to the wind, how could he be taught to experience the life of the grave? You will be told, according to the Sunnis, the body is not a condition of life, so the spirit may be attached to a few particles. And if you were to ask, how can one conceive of the torments of the grave? For if one placed an egg on the chest of a corpse and left it there for days, not the slightest movement would be felt in it. So how could there be life and torment? You would be told, the world of similitudes has proved it in the relevant places. Indeed, its existence is certain according to the punctilious divine scholars. That world of similitudes is characterized by its embodying meanings, transforming accidents into substance, and making mutable things immutable. The eyes that look to it from this manifest world are through dreams, through illuminations, and wraith-like bodies, for these all intimate its existence. The intermediate realm is a firmer reality than the world of similitudes, which is its image or exemplification, while the world of dreams is the shadow of the latter world, and the world of imagination is the shadow of the world of dreams. These bodies are as transparent as mirrors. Now, if you have understood this, consider the world of dreams and think of a person who is sleeping near you. He is resting peacefully and silently, but in his world he is fighting and being wounded by the blows he receives, or is beaten by a snake and he suffers pain at this. If it were possible for you to enter his dream, you would say to him, "Hey, don't feel helpless and angry. This isn't real, it is a dream." You would swear it 1,000 times, but he would not believe you and would say, "Can't you see that I have been wounded and the pain I am suffering? Can't you see the man and his sword and the snake that's hissing at me?" For the significations of his painful shoulder or cold in his head had been embodied as a cutting sword, for the result was the same. Or he imagines in the form of a snake what a betrayal that had wounded his heart had signified for him, for the pain was the same. Friend, now that you have seen this in the shadow of the world of similitudes, the world of dreams, wouldn't you accept it in the intermediate realm, the reality of which is far firmer and more distant from us, will bring you again to life in regard to the life of the hereafter? The life of the hereafter is the outcome of all the world. If it were not for that life, there would be no fixed and constant reality, and all truths, such as bounties, would be transformed into calamities. You can think of further examples in the same way. We summarized its proofs when expounding, and in the hereafter they have certain faith. The fifth matter regarding, and again to him will you return. This is the final note in the sequence, so consider the following. The Creator manifested his power, combining opposites in this world of change for many subtle instances of wisdom, and he placed apparent causes and intermediaries to display his dignity and determined the chains of cause and effect. Then, at the resurrection of the dead, when the universe is purified and opposites are separated out and join forces, causes will be removed and intermediaries will fall away, and the veil shall be raised, and each person will see his maker and recognize his true owner. An appendix summarizing the positioning of the phrases. Consider this. Having rebutted the disbelief implied by the rhetorical question, how, and having prompted the people's amazement at it, the Most High offers them proof with what follows the circumstantial, and, that is, the four mighty transformations, all of which and each of which testify to the necessity of belief. Each transformation comprises numerous stages and degrees, and each is the preliminary and stomach of the one that follows it. From the first stage of the first transformation till the last stage of the last transformation, the fundament of the living body is constantly renewed. It casts away one shell and is clothed in one more perfect. Then it discards that and is dressed in one finer. Then it throws that away and puts on a better form, and so on and so forth. It continuously swaps its form for one more perfect till it reaches the acme of perfection, and there it comes to rest on the establishment of eternal happiness. And all this is in accordance with the specified order and regular laws. With seeing that you were lifeless, it indicates the first transformation, which comprises numerous stages, the last of which leads to, and he gave you life, which points to the second transformation, which is the most wondrous of the truths of the world. It too comprises many stages, the last of which concludes in the transformation of, then will he cause you to die, which also has many stages pertaining to the intermediate realm. This finishes in the transformation of, and then will bring you again to life, which comprises many stages pertaining to the grave, and then to the resurrection of the dead, and is concluded with the truth of, and again to him will you return. How can anyone who studies these transformations attentively be so audacious as to deny them? Now we commence with the positioning and relationships of the constants of the phrases. The first phrase, that is, how can you refuse to acknowledge Allah, seeing that you were lifeless? The interrogative form is used here to call attention to the disbelievers' error so that they might see it themselves and come to think fairly and acknowledge Allah. How infers through the denial of the circumstantial sentence necessitated by how that their disbelief is in reality non-existence. The use of the second person in you refuse to acknowledge Allah indicates, as was discussed above, Allah's intense anger at them, and the non-use of do you not believe instead of you disbelieve indicates their extreme obduracy, for they hold back from belief, for which there are evidences, and accept disbelief, for the futility of which there are manifold proofs. The circumstantial conjunction and in seeing that and you implies an unstated phrase. The conjunction indicates that kuntum amwatan is circumstantial to the verb takfurun. The circumstantial word or phrase has to be together with the factor governing it, whereas there are four phrases here, two of which refer to the past are in the perfect tense, and two of which refer to the future are in the imperfect tense. They are therefore opposed to the rule of simultaneity. Therefore, the circumstantial and implies an unstated sentence or phrase, which is, seeing that and you know that you were lifeless. In this way, the words you know are circumstantial to the doer of the verb takfurun, you disbelieve. If you were to ask, they know the first life and death, but they don't know they are from Allah. Also, they don't accept the second life or agree that they will return to Allah the Most High. You will be told, it is a rule of eloquence to accord the ignorant man the status of a known or learned one, that is, not to call ignorance ignorance if there are clear evidences to dispel his ignorance. Since reflection on the stages of the first death and first life compels one to acknowledge the Maker and knowledge of them convinces one intellectually about the second life, the disbelievers as though had knowledge of that sequence of events. The use of the second person in you indicates that they had a specific existence in the world of minute particles too. The particles did not come together haphazardly and become a particular body by chance. And the choice of you were lifeless rather than lifeless, inanimate, or particles alludes to the meaning of the verse. Has there not been over man a long period of time when he was nothing, not even mentioned? Now the phrase, and he gave you life. If you were to ask, the conjunction fa and denotes succession and contact, that is, there should be no distance between what precedes and succeeds it. But doesn't it interrupt the stages? And isn't there a long interval between death or lifeless beings and life? You will be told, the fa indicates the source of the proof of the maker, and that is the transformation of particles spontaneously from an inanimate to an animate state, without the intervention of a reasonable cause, which compels the mind to acknowledge the maker. Moreover, the stages in the conditions of inanimate beings are defective and inconstant and are characterized by swift succession. And the choice of he gave you life rather than you became alive is for clarification, that is, you became alive, and this was possible only through the Maker's power. It has to be concluded, therefore, that it is Allah the Most High who gives life. Then the substitution of, then will He cause you to die, for you will die, indicates, as has been mentioned, that death is a vast act of divine power in accordance with the measuring of divine determining. You have surely noticed that it is only a tiny minority who live out their full natural span. This makes one realize that death is not a natural consequence. It is the dissolution of the body, not the extinction of the spirit. It is indeed the liberation of the spirit. In the phrase, and then He will bring you again to life, then indicates the intervention of the intermediate realm with its strange wonders. In the phrase, and again to Him will you return, then indicates the existence of the great veil while its raising and the repulsion of causes and dismissal of intermediaries are indicated by to Him will you return. If you were to ask, returning to Allah the Most High necessitates having come from Him in the first place, and because of this some people have imagined there to be union with Allah, and some Sufis have fallen into doubt. You will be told, just as in this world there is existence and its continuance, so in the hereafter there is existence and its continuance. In this world of flux and change, existence emanates from the hand of power without intermediary, but its continuance is encompassed by composition and decomposition and the disposal of power and change, and for the instances of wisdom mentioned above, causes intervene in it. But in the hereafter, both existence and its continuance will appear directly from the hand of power with all their necessities and compositions, and everything will know its true owner. If you think about this, you will understand the meaning of return. Verse 29. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن سبع سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم. It is He who has created for you all that is on earth, and has applied His design to the heavens, and has fashioned them into 7 heavens, and of all things He has full knowledge. This verse too has 3 important facets. The positioning of the verse as a whole in relation to the previous verse. In the previous verse, disbelief and ingratitude were disproved by means of evidences pertaining to man's self, And these were the stages of human development, and now this verse points out evidences in the outside world, al-dalail al-afaqiyya. Similarly, the previous verse indicated the boundaries of existence and life, while this verse indicates the boundary of permanent existence, al-baqa. Again, in the previous one, there was proof of the Maker and matters preliminary to the resurrection of the dead, while this verse indicates the realization of the resurrection and the dispelling of doubts, as though the disbelievers were asking, where does it come from, this value man has? Why does he have such importance? And what is his position in Allah's sight, that he should bring about the resurrection of the dead on account of him? So, the Qur'an replies through the indications of this verse. Man has high value, as is evidenced by the heavens and earth being subjugated to him for his use. He also has vast importance, as is evidenced by the fact that Allah did not create him for creation, but created creation for him. He also has a high place in Allah's sight, as is evidenced by the fact that Allah did not give existence to the world for itself, but for man, and He gave man existence that he might worship Him. It is to be concluded from this that man is superior and preeminent and not like the animals, and that he is worthy of receiving the jewel of, and again to him will ye return. The positioning of the verses phrases. Consider this. The word all in the first phrase, the word then in the second, and seven in the third all require investigation. We shall discuss them in three matters. The first matter, if you were to ask, this verse indicates that everything on the earth is for man's use, but how can one conceive of Zayd, for example, making use of every part of the earth? And how could Habib and Ali derive benefit from a stone at the foot of a mountain in the middle of an island in the Pacific Ocean? And how can Amr utilize Zayd's property? But this verse and others like it suggest that all of it is for each person without being divided up. Moreover, how with their vastness can the sun and moon and so on be for Zayd and Amr, and their main purpose be their tiny benefits? And how can harmful things be useful for human beings? For there is nothing vague or inaccurate in the Qur'an, and exaggeration is not in keeping with true eloquence. You would be told, consider the following 6 points which will put such doubts to flight. The first, as has been mentioned, it is characteristic of life that it makes the particular universal and the part into a whole, the single into a collectivity, and the restricted absolute, and the individual into a world. Thus, each member of all the species becomes like a living race or people, and the world becomes its house, and it comes to have relations with all things. The second, as you know, there are in the world a fixed order and firm arrangement and elevated principles and constant fundamental laws, making it like a clock or machine. And just as each cog will, indeed each tooth of each cog, and even every part of each tooth, plays a part, however minor, in the working order of the machine, so too, through the workings of the machine, it has an effect on the machine's utility and its production. In the same way, through its existence, every being is in some way useful for living beings, the chief and leader of which is the human race. The third, as has reached your ears in previous discussions, no being abstracts other beings in regard to benefiting from things. For just as the sun in its entirety is Zayd's and its light is his place of relaxation and promenading, so in its entirety is its arms and a garden for him. If, for example, Zayd were all alone in the world, he would benefit from it no more than if he were together with all the world's people, with the exception of that part that looks to the two caves. The fourth, the universe does not have only one fine facet. It has layer upon layer of different general facets, the benefits of which also have numerous general and interconnected facets, and the ways of utilizing them are numerous and various. For example, if you have a garden, you benefit from it in one way, and the people benefit in another by receiving pleasure from it through the faculty of sight, for instance. For, of course, man derives benefit through his five external senses, his inner faculties, and his body and spirit, and also by means of his intellect and heart in his life, both in this world and in the hereafter. And from the point of view of taking lessons, you can think of further examples in the same way. There is nothing preventing him utilizing any of these facets of anything on the earth or even in the world. The fifth, if we were to ask, the verses here and others in other places indicate that this vast world was created for human beings and that their utilization of it is the ultimate aim of its creation. However, the planet Saturn, which is larger than the Earth, is not proportionately more beneficial for man. It is just a sort of adornment and pale light. So, how could this be an ultimate reason for its creation? You will be told, a person who profits from a thing loses himself in the facet of it that he utilizes. He focuses his mind on it and forgets everything else, and he looks at everything else from his own point of view. Also, in his view, the aims and purpose of a thing are confined to the facet that looks to himself. Hence, there is nothing exaggerated or inaccurate if in the context of gracious bestowal it is said in connection with that person, although Saturn's creator gave it existence for thousands of instances of wisdom, each of which has thousands of facets, and every facet can be benefited from in thousands of ways. He created it for that person to benefit from. The sixth, as you noted earlier, for sure man is small, but in meaning he is great. Hence, for him some minor, particular benefit becomes universal and great. So there is nothing futile and useless. The second matter concerns then. This verse indicates that the earth was created before the heavens, while the verse, and after that the earth, while has his spread its expanse, shows that the heavens were created before the earth. Then the verse, the heavens and the earth were once one single entity, which we then parted asunder, indicates that they were created together and then split apart as the same matter. Understand secondly that the teachings of the Sharia suggest that Allah the Most High created firstly a substance, that is, matter, then He manifested His power on it and made a part of it steam and a part fluid. Then, through His manifestation, the fluid part thickened and became froth. Out of this, He created the earth, or the 7 globes of the earths. Then, a sky was formed for each of these earths out of the wafting atmosphere. Then He expanded the steamy matter and arranged the 7 heavens out of it, planting the stars in them. So the heavens took form containing the nuclei of the stars. According to assumptions and theories of modern science, the solar system, together with the heavens in which it floats, were a simple substance which was transformed into a sort of steam. Out of this, some fiery liquescent matter was formed, part of which cooled down and solidified. Then, due to its motion, the liquescent matter threw off into space sparks and pieces which broke up. This became compressed and turned into the planets, one of which is our Earth. If you have understood this, you may correlate these two explanations, for it is possible that the verse, "The heavens and the earth were once one single entity, which we then parted asunder," indicates that the earth and the solar system were a sort of dough kneaded by the hand of power out of a simple substance. I mean ether, which compared with beings is a fluid substance that passes through and among them. The verse, "And the throne of his almightiness has rested upon water," alludes to this matter which resembles water. After its creation, the ether received the Maker's first manifestation given existence, that is, he created the ether, then he made it into the fundamental atoms, then some of these he made dense, and out of them created the 7 globes, of which our earth is inhabited. Then the earth solidified before all the rest, speedily forming a crust, and over a long period of time became the source of life, while up to the present most of the heavenly bodies remained in a fiery fluid state. Insofar as this was the case, its creation and formation was before that of the heavens. And since its uses and benefits and its being spread out, that is, arranged and set in order, were completed after the arrangements and ordering of the heavens were previous in this respect, although the heavens and earth were together at the beginning. Thus, the 3 verses look to the 3 points, solving the apparent contradictions. The second answer: the Qur'an's aim is not to teach the history of creation, it was revealed to teach knowledge of the Maker, and so contains different levels, maqamat. When describing the divine bounties, favors, and mercy, and the clarity of the evidences, the earth comes first. But on the level of the proofs of divine grandeur, sublimity, and power, the heavens proceed. Then, this may refer to a being protracted or procrastination. This may be essential and may also pertain to degree or to reflection. Thus, "and has applied his design" implies the unstated words. Then, know and reflect on how he applied his design to the heavens. That is, the creation of the heavens was first in time, but in respect of reflection and thought, it is in second place, and the creation of the earth was after that of the heavens, but in regard to reflective thought, it comes first.